Welcome, RJ Jones. So tell us about this new unit and what it's going to offer.
So basically what we're hoping to offer is a variety of education, but resources for Indigenous people across Canada to understand the complexities of two-spirited people, but really to also understand LGBTQ issues, particularly like gender diversity, but also having that inclusion of like recognizing the historical context and understanding that two-spirit people and people of diverse gender backgrounds existed pre-colonization, and we kind of want to bring that information forward and essentially to disseminate that across Canada and to really better the healthcare of like two-spirit and LGBTQ2S plus Indigenous people across the board.
So why is it? I mean, it's 2018, so I guess I understand what you're saying. Why it's needed, but why hasn't it already been met? Why hasn't this demand already kind of been met? It's 2018.
So I think when we look at things in a historical context, the conversations of like LGBTQ Indigenous people has something that, yes, people have been talking for a long time, but there's another issue that we have to understand, that because of residential schools and because of the 60s scoop and general like forms of like colonialism, that has impacted the way that people see like LGBTQ plus issues, especially like issues around gender diversity. So a lot of that has to do with just understanding that, yes, like I guess in a national level, people are talking about LGBTQ rights, but that doesn't mean that conversation looks the same within more marginalized groups, and that being like Indigenous people. So really, like, I think why we're starting to see this change now goes back to understanding that this is starting to be a conversation that is happening within communities across Canada, and people are not equipped. But it wouldn't have been happening if it wasn't for the need and the demand, and a lot of that comes from like young people feeling safe enough to come out or to begin having conversations on gender diversity. Well, that might have looked very different for like even my generation and generations before me. So again, it just very much comes back and ties into like the historical context that colonization has impacted the way that we see LGBTQ2S plus people, particularly gender diversity, and how that's starting to be an okay conversation within our communities.
Okay, and so how are you going to get the word out?
So right now, I really want to do outreach online. I have a lot of contacts throughout Canada because I've been doing this work for a while. So really just kind of outreaching to those communities and sending it to them. But also, I know there are issues with like rural and urban, rural versus urban, and how rural doesn't tend to get the same amount of information. So I kind of want to go back to old school and not heavily rely on social media, but also be able to send like information packets to different groups such as NWAC's PTMAs across Canada, but also even in northern communities or communities where you can't actually rely on internet. So again, we're going to do lots of like on the grounds information, but also the thing with like LGBTQ2S plus people is that it's already a really small community, so really it's already beginning to spread, luckily. So, and it all comes back to like the people who are involved and who have been a part of this conversation from the beginning, who are really, and people who really believe in the work, who are actually just going to spread that awareness. So it's very much like word of mouth.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing this with us, and we look forward to watching the rollout.
Thank you.